Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back. This is our Startup Spotlight series. We're focusing on our 2020 Pre-Accelerator companies, and I'm incredibly excited to introduce Katie Findling with myCoffeePass. We are rocking and rolling. It is week 5 out of week 6, so demo day is rapidly approaching. So be sure to keep an eye out for our Eventbrite when we're going to have people sign up so that you can join our watch party and watch these amazing founders really leave it all on the stage as they showcase what they've learned over the last 6 weeks or so. And so, getting started, Katie, we would love to hear a little bit more about yourself, who you are, what your background is, and how you got to be doing what you're doing now.
Perfect. Hey guys, my name is Katie Findling. Like Joy said, I'm the founder and CEO of myCoffeePass. My background is in marketing and sales and business development. And on a more personal level, I played college softball, played professional football. So I am an athlete competitor at heart, which is great for being a founder. And yeah, myCoffeePass, I had the idea 2 years ago, and I was a MoviePass user, if any of you have used MoviePass. And it was great. I was paying $9.95 a month, and I could go see unlimited movies. And I thought to myself, there is no way that they are profitable. Well, sorry to ruin the story for you, but they weren't profitable, which is why they went out of business. And then I started thinking, I have this love and passion for coffee and local, and how could I combine the two and basically create an app that is similar to the Starbucks app, but for local coffee shops. So that is what inspired it all. And here we are 2 years later.
That's amazing. Thank you, Katie. So yeah, who doesn't love a good jolt of caffeine, especially when you're in founder la la land, where basically every day is a crazy day. And so I think that's really cool that you're focusing on, the local companies. Where exactly are you sort of focusing your efforts on right now?
So we launched the first version of the app in December in Austin and San Antonio. So we have fewer coffee shops in San Antonio, more in Austin, but that's been our focus for right now.
Amazing. So, when you're talking about you release like the first version of the application, can you talk a little bit about what it was like building the first part of the product and kind of the journey?
So where we started again 2 years ago, I think I failed to mention, but myCoffeePass, for those that are tuning in, we are a monthly subscription-based mobile app that connects coffee lovers to local coffee shops, and we use a credit-based system. So if you guys are familiar with ClassPass, you buy an allotted amount of credits and you redeem those credits at local coffee shops. So the whole point is you're getting rewarded up front versus you pay, and then you get rewarded. And it's a discovery app. So you can go find local coffee shops that you connect to and vibe with. And so that's our app. But when it started 2 years ago, I just knew that I had this idea, and I've had a lot of business ideas. I went to 2 of my really good friends who are both amazing yet cynical. And so they know I'm like this dreamer. I'm a Pisces. Like I have so many ideas. And so I went to them and I was like, hey, what about this idea? And they're like, Katie, this is awesome. And so I was like, all right, well, if you guys are saying that, this must be something. It started I ended up saying, okay, I know what I don't know, and I know what I know. And so I know that I don't know tech. And I know that I've never been a founder before. I know I have the tenacity to do those hard founder things, but I've never been a founder. So where do I start? So I live in Austin, and I ended up going to Capital Factory looking for a mentor. There was a female speaker. I thought she would be great for being one of my mentors to help me along this journey. And I ended up coming out with a business coach. And that was the start of this whole journey, is just knowing, and I know you're going to get to it later, but just something that I would advise people to do is to make sure that you have the right team members in place, or the right people with the right knowledge. So whatever your weaknesses are, I strongly suggest finding those people that will help you in those weaknesses. And that's exactly what I did. So I found my team. brought on advisors, I went through app developers, a lot of just researching, getting quotes and figuring out how much this ideal app for myCoffeePass was going to cost. Realized that the app that I ideally want is like a $300,000 to $500,000 app. So obviously I'm a first-time founder. I know that I wasn't going to be able to raise that much capital at the very beginning. So I started smaller, and we found an app development team that was within our budget, and that's where we started. So that was kind of the beginning journey of getting to where we are 2 years later. So
thank you for giving us all of that. I mean, it's congratulations to you, like being a first-time founder, being, having an idea for something that requires, an app to utilize, and like knowing, okay, like I know I don't know these things for myself, but I don't have to do all the things. I just need to be able to go find the people who can help me with the things.
exactly.
So I think that that's a really great strategy that not all founders necessarily take on. Some of them feel like I have to learn every inch of my business by myself,
Exactly.
which can put you into a whole heap of trouble for a variety of other reasons.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at, being a non-technical person, really looking at how you build your application or how it gets built, can you talk about some of the challenges that you had, or some of the really cool successes that came out of finding app developers to collaborate with on it?
Yeah. So again, I knew I needed a techie person. I ended up bringing on someone who acted as my CTO, amazing individual, worked for NASA, really knew the ins and outs of tech. Obviously, I do not. And so it's interesting, right? So I had this vision of what I wanted the app to be. And when we went to the app developers, we just kind of like learned through trial and error. For example, every POS system is different. So on the coffee shop side, we're helping support the coffee shops and bring in more people, and just keep their customers happy. And again, every POS system is different. So when we went to go integrate with our coffee shop partners, we realized really fast that it was impossible to create an app that actually, and not impossible, right? Nothing's impossible, but very difficult and expensive and near impossible to integrate with these POS systems. So with that, we had to pivot, which we went to. Right now, the app, it's a very interactive app. So in COVID, we're pivoting, which I know we'll get to later. But it's when you open the app, there's a barcode, a QR code reader. And so we had to pivot to where there was a QR code. So instead of, so we learned that the hard way. We've learned, oh my gosh, there's been so many, like, that's like one of those things I have to like sit down and write down all of the failures that we learned through. But I would say the biggest one is just not being able to integrate with all the POS systems. Yeah, so I don't know for the non-technical people, but yeah, that's how that went. Did I fully answer that question?
Yeah, no, I think that there wasn't a trick question in there. I was just really, for those of you that don't know, POS systems are point of sale systems. And so it can be kind of difficult to standardize how applications fit or work seamlessly with them, because every shop is different, especially I would imagine like small craft local places where their budgets are kind of a little bit different. So I'm sure that's a very tricky part of all of it. But I think any information that you provided on how to go about sourcing, or the challenges that came up, or the cool things that you were able to unlock for yourself by going and finding really great quality developers. And you have an app that's in play that people are on right now, which is really exciting. And honestly, that's like a great place to be, because you can then get customer feedback and you can do iterative development and like really think about how to make that perfect $300,000+ app that you're talking about. And not right off the bat, because if you did, say, have this capital and then you threw it all on the table and you built this application and you didn't have anybody using it and you didn't have customer feedback, you might have just spent $300K on an app that doesn't ultimately serve you. So this might be a better way to move forward.
Well, and that's part of it. I mean, you touched on a great point also, like for anyone starting off, right? We are very visionary. Founders are inherently visionary. So we see what we think is a great idea, and it's more about what the market thinks is a great idea. So yeah, we've gotten some feedback and it's been awesome on the app. So
Well, that's
yeah.
fantastic. Thank you. So now that you have, the first iteration of the app and you've got, some customers on it, what was it like for you sourcing, your first customers and getting them loaded into the application and then, working with them as, over the last few months?
Mm-hmm. So right before launch of the first version of the app, so we started obviously beta testing, which is just a smaller group of people trying to figure out the bugs and the kinks and get those worked out before going like fully public. And so we still aren't, I wouldn't say like we're not marketing fully public yet, because again, we're pivoting, but backing up to where we were like October, November, I was just reaching out to groups of people to see who wanted to beta test the app, to check it out, give feedback. I've been to networking groups and said, hey, this is the app that we've launched. I would love feedback. And the feedback that we had gotten so far. So again, I guess I should walk you through the way that the app works. Again, there's a QR code that's store specific for each coffee shop. So you go in as the user and you scan the barcode. It pops up. There's a screen that pops up and it says, hey, you're at Buzzmill Coffee. And all you do is you deduct a credit. And then what you do is you just tell the baristas your order. They go in, they put the order in, and then comp the order. And then at the end of the month, we get sent a report saying, hey, this is who came in and what they bought. So it's super seamless for the barista. There's not much that the barista has to do. And then there's not much that the user has to do. So it's very like cool, interactive. And the early feedback that we got from that version was, I would love to know. So also in the app, there's a maps portion where, say you're going to be North Austin for a meeting, you could go and see what local coffee shops are in North Austin. There's a marker, so you can click on the marker and then it brings up this screen that gives you a synopsis of what you can expect. So Monkey Nest is one of our coffee partners. You know that Monkey Nest, obviously it's a local coffee shop. They do their own baked goods. Their coffee is amazing, and it's kind of more of a student hangout. And so you would know those types of, and they put on events. So say you're looking for an event, you could also see that through the synopsis. So it's awesome because you know what you're getting before you go. Another example would be Buzzmill has an outdoor area. So if you were to click on Buzzmills, it would say, hey, we have this great outdoor area. So again, you know what you're getting before you go, which is awesome. That's my favorite part of the app. And then it's cool because you can click on it, the marker, it pops up in your Google Maps and it takes you there. So it's a little bit about the product overall. So the feedback was, when I go to a coffee shop, I want to see kind of ratings. Like they actually wanted to be more involved in like the rating of the coffee shop, which I thought was very interesting. Because for me, like I want to be in and out. Like I want to be able to put my coffee, like, or tell the barista what I want and then grab my coffee and just leave. Like I don't want to sit there and rate the coffee shop. But it was interesting to see that people were like, I want to rate it. So we've talked about, I don't know, we'll see what happens, right? You can't cater to everyone, but that was some feedback that we got. Other feedback was one of our users found out like how much they were saving. So they went into Buzzmill, bought a coffee that would usually cost them like $6.50, and on average you're paying like $4 a cup of coffee. So again, this is all geared and catered towards specialty coffee, so like your mochas, your lattes, that type of drink, espresso based drink. And so he had said to me, he was like, I use this app way more now, knowing that I save on average $2.50 a drink. So that was awesome. It's always exciting, right, to show customers and coffee lovers what they're saving on their coffee. So that was the feedback that we've gotten so far. Again, that was December. COVID happened in March. So I had 3 months of data, I guess, if you will, for that. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, customer feedback's the number one thing that you can be doing almost anything with. And I think you kind of touched on something very important that founders kind of have to learn, like for your experience and what you think the problem is or what you think the ideal solution is, does not mean that resonates with, your customers or your audience and how they're going to interact with things. And so good for you for being willing to listen to what they have to say. Because, as a founder, you have the choice to be like, no, this is how I think it should work. And we don't want to be like all those other people, which sometimes really pays off, but it really pays off too, getting to know the ins and outs of really what your customers' problems are and how you can make their lives so much better. Just a reminder to anybody tuning in, we're on Facebook Live. We're also on our YouTube channels. If you do have any questions for Katie, please drop them in the channels. We'll be able to get that to us through our chat here and get those questions answered for you. So we have danced around this a little bit, and we always do kind of talk about it because we're still 6 or so months into really dealing with what's happening with COVID-19 here, especially here in Texas and San Antonio area. So I'd like for you to, if you don't mind, just speaking a little bit, you got it launched in December, you have about 3 months worth of data, talk about your experiences with COVID-19 as a founder and what that's done for you.
Okay. Yeah. So it's more so, and what I haven't touched on yet is, it's a double-sided market. So we have our coffee lovers who use the app, and then we actually our vision is to help increase local coffee shop growth. So with COVID happening, I would say that a huge downturn happened for the local businesses. So all of our local coffee shop partners, and even not our coffee shop partners, all coffee shops, were hit really hard. So I will admit, I went through this stage of crap. I just launched this in December, and I got worried for my partners because, again, they work very hard. Local businesses in general work very hard to stay afloat as it is. And then now with COVID happening, so I went on this, how do I still help them? Because again, the app is very interactive, and that was the whole point of the first version, was to be interactive. Now we've gone to a world where we can't be interactive. How do I help support these local coffee shops? So we started helping direct people to the GoFundMe accounts that were being created at the time. Trying to figure out how we could get their products sold, so their coffee beans and coffee bags. So we kind of honestly got put on hold for a second, and then it's kind of taking a step back and reevaluating, because we were going in this direction. Now we've got to figure out how to go the virtual direction. And again, we raised a friends and family type of round, which was great. It helped us launch the first version of our app, but it's where do we go with what we have? And what we had at that point was an interactive app. So it's been interesting to figure out as a founder how to, again, help support your partners, because at the end of the day, we're there to support them. So how to support them, how to help ourselves grow through this interesting time that we're all going through. So that's kind of what's happened. So we're still figuring it out, but it's been a good experience, because I think what you realize as a founder is the hard times are what help you be creative, if you allow it to. Or just doing research on other successful startups, they started in downturns like this. So it's one of those things, it's a slight hiccup, a slight bump in the road, but it's actually helped us be a lot more creative, which is great. So we're still working on solutions for our coffee shop partners, and then we're still working on solutions to how to get people to still interact with these coffee shops. So we're still working on it, basically, is a long story short.
No, I mean, thank you for that. I know it has been challenging at times, but I do agree with you. I think that some of the best things come out of really intense times of crisis and challenge, and it does make for more resilient businesses and more resilient people and founders. So I'm really glad that, you're sticking through it. I think some of that also has to do with your background as an athlete. Just really understanding
Definitely.
that it's progress, not perfection every day. And you
Yes.
just have to do your best every day and improve, as you go. And
Yes.
that's really the determination that's going to make or break you. And I think that you're doing a fantastic job. And I'm a little biased because you're in our program, so I can say
Exactly.
that. But speaking of, things like, so you're actually, not a founder of the San Antonio area, but out of Austin. We're very glad that you and Michael Roth from Evo Security were able to
Yep.
come down and participate in, well, I say come down, but to participate in our virtual program this year. Especially because we are cities away from each other. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on, how the San Antonio community has been supportive of you, or, the things that we've been doing right, or, just your impression overall of what we have happening in our ecosystem.
Yeah. Love it. Super grateful to Geekdom, first of all. So shout out to Geekdom for having us on board. It's funny because right, as soon as I started this, and I love networking. I love meeting new people. I try to be very heavily involved in the Austin tech scene. Found a mentor in the San Antonio tech scene and was introduced to an enormous amount of people, which I'm forever grateful for. And it was really when I went to the startup week in San Antonio, I guess last year. Was it last year? Yeah. Wow, the years gone by. And just going to the startup week down there and seeing the startup scene and how supportive it is for one another, like Geekdom, heavily involved down there, and just it was amazing. Like I remember going to actually the Geekdom pitch competition that took place and was very impressed with the startups that were pitching. Rectify, shout out, they did awesome. San Antonio is just awesome, and the coffee shops are amazing. So being able to even integrate with the coffee shops in San Antonio, that's kind of how I got into the San Antonio coffee shops. So shout out to them as well. They're killing it. But San Antonio is just awesome. It's catching up, I feel like, to Austin, and it's nice that it's literally an hour from my house. So but everyone's just super supportive, and I appreciate, like, literally everyone opened their arms to me when I came, and I appreciate that. I just think the more that I'm in the startup scene, it's amazing that people really genuinely want to help one another. So they want to help you succeed if you're willing to put in the work and be open to learning. But yeah, I would say that's how it is. And then just being a part of Geekdom, the mentors are amazing and honest, sometimes brutally honest, but it's like to the point where it's much needed. So that's been my experience so far. It's been awesome. So
No, thank you for saying all of those things. We really appreciate
yeah.
it. We know that, you've
I
gone
mean it. It's not just because I'm a part of the program.
not to put you on a spot on our
Yeah.
spotlight. No, I know that you said this to me offline as well, and I really am glad that that's like the takeaway that you have from it. Coming from such a very activated area to a place like San Antonio, which is very active. We're just probably not at the same. I would say, like, in the cycle of things, like the life cycle of startup creation. We're still very ideation early stage, though we're getting later stage companies here all the time. And we're having our later stage companies see a lot of successes and really start to pop. So I think you're here, one, in a great year. Two, I think this is a really strong cohort. So we're very pleased that you are a part of it. And yeah, I think we actually connected last year during the startup week at the Tech Fuel competition that Tech Talk hosted. Yeah. So there were some really amazing startups that came out of that too. And we definitely pride ourselves in our ability to collaborate and have strong partnerships, and the quality of our mentors as well. Mentor excellence and things is something that San Antonio is very dedicated to.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that that's coming through our program loud and clear. So moving forward, like, if we want to kind of take a step back from the business stuff and from the acceleration space and all the craziness, it has been a pretty bananas 3 to 6 months 6 months, almost feels like 10 years in 2020.
Right.
You as a founder, like, you're more than your business, you're more than your company, you're more than this grind. Like, how do you step away and take time for yourself to manage what's happening?
First of all, I will say you have to step away and take time to yourself. And I was, for the first 2 years, or like year and a half, I was very much, I didn't give myself breaks enough. So I felt like when COVID happened, it kind of hit me harder maybe, because I was like, all of a sudden, I came to this halt, right? This kind of challenge of, all right, COVID's hit, our partners are now affected. What are we doing with our customers? And stuff of that sort. And so it kind of forced me again to step back and allow myself to be okay with taking breaks. Like, I remember I would, like, a year ago, I would take a Netflix break, right? One episode, and I literally felt guilty the whole time I'm watching Netflix. It's like, my computer's right there, I should be working. And it's like, no, Katie, in reality, like, you have to like step away. It's kind of like what Bill Gates does, where he takes a couple weeks off and he goes and he isolates himself and all he does is read. It's his think week. We definitely need those as founders for sure, especially in these hard times. But for me, I was always immersed in sports. So I just got through playing with a league, a football league in January. We won our championship. It was awesome. But I didn't have time for it anymore. So filling that gap, right? This like constant need to like be active. So working out for me is very important. I try to work out 5 times a week at least, or go hiking. I love being in nature, so paddleboarding. I would say that meditation is a huge part of my day, meaning like when I wake up in the morning, and it doesn't have to be anything special. Like, I meditate for 10 minutes, but it makes my mind focus on what it is. I do guided meditation. So focus on what I'm listening to and visually seeing what it is that I want to do, create a purpose and an intention for my day. I feel like that's kind of underrated, meditation. So meditate. I listen to motivational stuff. So my YouTube, if you were to go follow me on YouTube, like all I listen to is like motivational, podcast, those types of things. But again, just stepping away from the computer screen and going and being one with nature is super important. And that's what's gotten me through. I would say working out, meditation, and just being active outdoors, or just like walking. I have a dog, so walking my dog nightly, that helps a ton as well. So that's what I do to stay sane. And it's actually been amazing. So it's helped a ton.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We always want to try to humanize our founders a little bit, because startup success has a lot to do with who they are as people and how set they are. And it's really hard to manage that. And I know I talk about it all the time, but founders' lifestyles, startup lifestyle, it's not a very consistent path. It's not a very sane path to take at times, because you're just constantly putting yourself at peaks and valleys. And
Yes.
especially if you do this consistently, or you're a serial founder, what you find is that there is very little room for stability, and that can lead to burnout for sure, and other disastrous things. So thank you for covering that.
Of course.
So as we kind of push on a little bit, we've got about, a half hour left of our time, but I'd love to hear what kinds of tools or services that you've been using in your business, or that you discovered that could be really helpful for other founders to maybe take advantage of. Or if you wanted to give a shout out to any of the developer teams that you're looking for. One of the biggest questions we get is like, oh, where can we go to get good development talent? And we have our resources, but, definitely put it out there if you think there's something super beneficial that other people need to know about.
Yeah, I will say something that I learned a little too late, right? I was newer to the tech space. I knew that, right, everyone was like, you should outsource your tech development outside of the US because it's cheaper. And at that point, I didn't want to, because I'm very much like, I want to make sure I know who I'm working with. And so because I was newer, I was like, I'm going to keep it in-house in the United States for the first part of it, and then I might outsource if I find that, right? If I network and I meet the right people that can make those intros. So I will say, again, surrounding yourself with tech people. Now I feel like the more that I'm in the space, I have a lot of tech friends and colleagues that I can reach out to that are now utilized more. But there's an awesome program. It's called Kiwi Tech. I will give a shout out to them. They reached out to me, and it's cool because they actually invest in your business. So they give you investment money, and then they take over and they do, it's like half investment, half. So say you need $40,000 of tech done, they will invest 20,000, and then they will take over and they just do the app development, and it's at a cheaper price. But I wish I'd known about that because the program, they seem awesome. I will say, not in regards to like tech, but Airtable. I use Airtable. I went through DivInc, by the way, shout out to DivInc. Just did their program here in Austin, and they have a partnership with Airtable. I like Airtable. It keeps me, there's just, right, in the founder's brain, there's just so much going on. There's like the vision, and then there's like all these tasks you have to do, and then there's the people management, and there's just so many things going on that it helps me stay organized. So Airtable, I will say them. Zoom, right now that we are virtual, Zoom is everyone's best friend. Let's see what else. I will say Capital Factory, Slack, Geekdom, all of those. Being a part of like networking groups on Facebook, so related to your industry, those are very helpful because I think too, as founders, we're so in the weeds with our own business that we can't see sometimes things, and other people, like being surrounded by like-minded individuals is super important. So those groups help facilitate that. And I know that's not, it's more of a resource, but I will say those. That was a good long list of resources. And reading, podcast, books. I could name a bazillion books.
Well, like, name 2 books and then we can push on.
Let's see. High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. It's more of a personal development book. Slicing Pie helps you with figuring out equity and how that works, or venture deals. That's 3. There's so many more, but those 3.
Yeah, those are fantastic. Highly recommended, tried and true books for the entrepreneur that really wants to figure it out. Yes. And because we do have a large community that listens to podcasts, what is your favorite podcast, business or otherwise? Business or otherwise?
Okay. My favorite is Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu. He's freaking amazing. If you haven't checked him out, huge shout out to him. He's the founder of Quest Nutrition. And actually his wife has a really good podcast as well, but they're just a freaking power couple. So if you're looking for that, he's very direct, super smart. It's both business and personal development. I'm obsessed with his podcast. So
fantastic. Thank you so much. So I know that we touched on it a little bit and we're kind of winding down in terms of our interview, but, would you be able to share a little bit more about what myCoffeePass has on the horizon?
Yeah. So in terms of, I've been looking for a co-founder for forever, a technical co-founder. So we've been interviewing a lot of people to bring someone, a developer in-house. By the way, I would say if you can bring a developer in-house early on, highly recommend it. So we're interviewing people for that. So if you actually, I'll just do a shout out. If you guys know of anyone looking to be a technical co-founder or has previous CTO experience, let me know. I would love to talk to you further. But that we are going to announce soon another co-founder. I'm actually bringing on a co-founder. So that will be announced soon. So look for that. I can't spoil that yet. And we are, I can't even talk about really the pivot, but we are pivoting. And so that will be announced within the next couple of weeks as well. So I can't really touch on that either.
Man,
That's boring. I know, right? Spoilers.
for everybody. No, way to edit yourself. You're not a Tom Holland. You're not giving things away. No one's going to have to come in and censor you or babysit you. In case your investors are watching, like, she's doing a great job, guys, keeping a lid on it. But yeah, so everybody needs to stay tuned to what Katie's got coming out in the next few weeks. And definitely over the next few months, because with, I'm sure, a big pivot and announcement and new founders to the team, like, you're going to be really running and gunning between now and the holidays, which, is really exciting. And what a time to be positively building too.
That is good. Yeah.
And I guess this very last thing that we should cover is, taking all of your experiences over the last 2 years, can you kind of give some of, oh, you know what? No, we didn't touch on. I'm glad we didn't do this yet. Investment. What has it been like to raise capital as a first-time founder during this time period? Like, can you talk about your experiences?
Yeah. It's difficult. So we haven't actually officially raised. Like I said, I was very fortunate. I remember 2 years ago going to Capital Factory, this event, like I had mentioned previously. And I was very fortunate to find someone that just believed in me as a person. I'm an open book, I will say, to a fault. But I would say that I love that about myself, is I'm just very open and honest. And so anyways, it helps with connection, and it benefited me. I found someone who was interested, and he was like, Katie, I want to invest, and not even in what you're doing, because what you're doing is great, but it's more of who you are as a person. So I will say, I feel very blessed and honored to have had that so early on, because it was just an idea. And I will say that's the hardest part about being a founder, is having this amazing idea and then finding capital to do it, right? Which is why a lot of people bootstrap. And so I had that, which has helped me help us get the app where it is and launched, and having customers give feedback and stuff like that. We are in the middle of fundraising right now, actually. So we are, right, that's another part of the founder journey, is being focused on pitch decks and creating those relationships with investors and stuff like that. So we haven't really gotten fully into the true fundraising, so I can't give any advice on that. But I would just say the advice that I would give to anyone is just be you, like, be yourself. Again, I think that's my greatest strength. One of them is being able to just be me. I don't sugarcoat things. I'm very blunt. I have the best of intentions. So yeah, that's all I got for fundraising. It's not too exciting right now, other than we are fundraising. So ask me in like a year the true like fundraising journey, and I'll be able to give you more, but that's how it's been so far.
No, I think that at any point of where a founder is at in this process, and whether or not you choose to bootstrap, or you choose to do organic growth, or you choose to go out and get financing versus funding, this is important. And like, it's not, there is no straight formula for success with any of this. And I think the things that you touched on was like, one, you were able to raise some kind of funds, at the very beginning with just an idea, which not a lot of founders necessarily get to. A lot of investors, especially in a time like this, want to really see some traction, want to really see that you've made it through those first couple of hurdles. So it speaks a lot to the relationships that you're building, which is a really great strategy. Not that takes away from the genuine nature of those relationships, but just knowing that you as a founder is bringing something very unique and special to the table, and it's getting recognized with like-minded investors. And being aware of how you're sourcing your investors and where you're meeting them is really important, regardless of what level you're raising at. So thank you for sharing some information on that. And so, the last question is like the advice to founders, like, what top 3 things do you think founders should definitely take to heart when pursuing these goals? Or what big 3 pitfalls have you seen in your time and your experience that they should watch out for?
Number 1, I will say it's not a luxurious journey. Right. We see incredible founders like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and just Elon Musk, right? The list is so long, but the journey is hard. and you're sacrificing a lot. Like, you're sacrificing time with friends, time with family. You're sacrificing, I was telling you before, like, I don't know what holidays are. I used to not know what the weekends are, and now I've learned that I need a break. So I will like I just got back from Houston. So like you got to take those. But basically what I'm getting at is it's hard, and you have to be willing to put in the work. And it's when you don't necessarily want to do it, you've got to do it. And I feel like, yeah, it's just not, it's not for everyone. It's interesting that I'm around people and they're like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And I actually don't even like saying that I'm an entrepreneur. I don't feel like I'm qualified enough yet to say that, but it's, you have to be willing to go on the journey of sacrificing a lot of stuff. There's no stability. It's literally, like you've mentioned before, like it's literally ups and downs, and you have to be willing to accept the failures. And I will say that's another advice, like, you're going to fail. And I appreciate sports for a lot of many different reasons, but one is failure is never failure. It's just an opportunity to learn. And so when you see failure as more of an opportunity to learn, I feel like you're more successful. Again, it's the mindset that you have to have, because if you're so caught up in the failure, you're like, that's kind of a more negative mindset. So again, the mindset that it takes to be an entrepreneur, like, you've got to be constantly working on yourself. There's just no downtime, honestly. For the first couple of years, I haven't gotten to downtime yet. So that's what you have to look forward to. And that's like the blunt Katie advice that I will give for that point. And that's just point one. I will say, own your shit. I like, be accountable. Sometimes people do things and it's technically not your fault. But when you're the founder, when you're the CEO, you've got to take on that responsibility, because at the end of the day, like, it is kind of your fault. So being willing to set your ego aside and say, hey, right, with your partners, a two-sided business, there's a lot going on. So going to your partners and saying, hey, this is where we're at, this is where we messed up, and just having that like open conversation is critical, especially with your investors or with people who you're looking to maybe go to for funding. Like, having those open dialogues is super important early on, and just being honest always. Honesty is the best policy, obviously. So that's number two. Take accountability, own your shit, be honest. And then I will say, be willing to ask for help. So checking your ego at the door. I have amazing mentors, and I've had like conversations with them at like 2 a.m. Like, I've been super stressed out, and I'm like, hey, I need just kind of advice or your thoughts on this. And it's not that necessarily that you have to take every mentor's advice, because we've mentioned through going through Geekdom, like, you're going to get hit with so much at one time, and different conflicting advice. But at the end of the day, trusting your gut. So asking the questions, being willing to ask for help, checking your ego at the door, and then taking it all in, and then trusting ultimately your gut in making that in the best decision. So those are the 3 heavily packed words of advice I could give to any founder, but the list is endless. So well, those 3.
Everybody's journey is different, right? So there's all different kinds of skill sets that can come out.
Yes.
But thank you so much for that, Katie.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage you, and I want to encourage other founders and people out there who are trying new things. Like, there's a point at which you can say that you're very experienced at these things. But I am of the opinion, and I know a lot of people who pursue things actively, like, you are an entrepreneur, you are a founder because you live it every day. You picked up that mantle 2 years ago when you launched your business. And so that is something that you've been actively driving towards. Are you the most advanced entrepreneur on the planet? Are you the most successful? Absolutely not yet, but you're at the very beginning of it. And I don't want you or anyone else to walk away from here feeling like, well, I haven't done 4 of these things, or I haven't had an exit yet, which must mean that I'm not an entrepreneur. Because that's not the case, because those people who got to those points, those Elon Musks, like, they didn't start off that way.
Very
And
true.
so, but I appreciate what you said. Wholeheartedly agree with so much of it, and am really thrilled that you're a part of this cohort. We
Yeah.
are really excited to see what the demo day is going to bring, and what our watch party in September is going to showcase to everybody what you've been building, despite the craziness, and finding that resilience and grit. And with that, do you have any last minute words before we wrap up?
No, I will say this. There's always going to be naysayers. So one thing, right, in sports, I mean, it was actually the haters and like the people who said that I couldn't do things, like that motivated me. The same thing with business. Like you're gonna have people that don't necessarily agree with what you're doing, but if you believe in it and right, you can prove that there's a market for it. Like I would say go for it, because it's honestly like the best experience, because it's so hard, and the hard things in life are the most rewarding. So that's the last thing I'll say, is just go for it. I'm like super cheerleader, so if you follow me on social media, like that's what I constantly post about. So yeah, just go for it, follow your ambitions, and get it done.
That's
That's all I
amazing.
got.
Thank you. No, I think that's a great way to close us out. And with that, we'll wrap up this startup spotlight with myCoffeePass founder, Katie Findling. She's definitely rocking it here in our pre-accelerator. We're so thrilled to have her. Looking at ahead, the next couple of things we've got this week, we have 2 community spotlights. We have one tomorrow with the Minority Business Development Association to talk about their COVID-19 Resilience Business Development Center and how you can get involved and be aware if you're a local founder and business owner, minority business owner. Like if you just need to know what resources are available to you, please tune in tomorrow at 12:30 with us here on our Facebook and link and our YouTube channels. And then also on Friday, we're having another community spotlight with none other than Go Smart Solar's Robert Miggins and Jason Pittman talking about their Big Sun Community Solar Project, which we're really thrilled about. And with that, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you so much, Katie. As always, it's a pleasure. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.